I'm going to call this December 7th, 2021, regular Hancock County Commissioners meeting to order. Gentlemen, I'd ask you to look at your agenda and see if there's any suggestions for adjusting them.
I'm going to move to approve the agenda as presented with the exception of moving item 11, EMA, to between items 4 and 5.
Seconded. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Any further adjustments? Hearing none. Agenda is in order. Next item, we'd ask if there's anybody else that would like to make a public comment. Anybody would like to comment publicly this morning? Seeing none, move on to item 2.
I move to approve the minutes of the November 16th special meeting as presented.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 3, this morning we have a recognition from the maintenance department. Morning, Dennis.
Morning. This morning we celebrate 15 years of service for Dave Linnell, a valued asset in the courthouse, and we wish it were going to be 15 more, but we'll see. Let's do it. Dave Linnell.
I think David did. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to move to recognize Facilities Director Dave Linnell for his 15 years of service. Thank you.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think Dennis and David make an excellent team. And I attended the safety meeting we had the other day that David headed up. He did a good job. He's a good leader. And we're very fortunate to have you on board, David. Congratulations for staying with us. And thank you for staying with us for 15 years.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Thank you for putting me near the top of the agenda. I appreciate that. First thing I have on my agenda is to recognize one of my patrol sergeants and one of my deputies, and I'd like to read, give you the information that goes along with both of these recognitions. First one, on July 14th, 2021, the RCC received a call from a male stating that one of his workers left a message, advising that he was on a job site in Sedgwick and then he should send an ambulance and get his body. The RCC relayed this information to Deputy Dylan Hall, who responded to the location. Deputy Hall arrived and located a vehicle belonging to the subject in crisis and was shown inside the job site by the contractor. Once inside, Deputy Hall encountered a male sitting on top of a ladder with a rope around his neck. Hall attempted to talk the male down and get him to come down from the ladder, but was unsuccessful in doing so. After a brief conversation, the male stepped off the ladder, leaving him hanging by the neck. Deputy Hall grabbed the male and lifted him up, taking the tension off the rope while the contractor cut the rope and allowing the subject to be taken to the ground. Once on the ground, the unconscious male soon came awake and began to fight with Deputy Hall. At one point during the struggle, the subject tried to take the gun from another deputy who had arrived to assist. Eventually, after a period of time, the subject was taken under control and handcuffed for safety. While being taken to the cruiser for transportation to the hospital, the subject again started to struggle with the deputies. He eventually was taken under control and transported to the hospital for evaluation. The accident and quick response by Deputy Hall saved the life of a man in crisis. His training and professional behavior was critical in the incident, having a positive result. Deputy Hall is being presented with the Hancock County Sheriff's Office Life Saving Award. Thank you, Deputy Hall, for all you do.
Would you come forward, please?
And then I'll have a motion after.
Can we have a hard copy of that? Do we have a?
Should have it.
You have one? Nope, that's right. Shit, that's. That's why I slept. I wanted.
So I'm going to move to recognize Deputy Dylan Hall for his life-saving action on July 14th, 2021. Congratulate him on receiving the Hancock County Sheriff's Life-Saving Award.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Second, this is a document that I received from Deputy Chief Dave Winchester in Bucksport. On 6/25/21, the Bucksport Police Department responded to a suicidal male that was on the Bucksport Road Bridge. Officers Matthew Smith, Caleb Brooks, and Director Sean Gagan, along with Hancock County Sheriff's Department Sergeant Daniel Howland, responded to the area to find a male standing outside the bridge railing above the water. Officer Smith and Officer Brooks calmly approached the man and began conversing with him while Director Gagan began making phone calls to prepare for a water rescue in case the negotiations with the male failed. Sergeant Howland then joined Officer Smith and Brooks as they attempted to convince the obviously despondent male to climb back over the railing to safety. The communications continued for nearly 20 minutes, and at times it seemed certain that the male would fall into the waters below. But the trained officers remained vigilant and were eventually successful in convincing the man to return to safety. I have no question that without the intervention of these caring, trained professionals, this man would have succeeded in his attempt and would most likely not have survived in the water below. It's my pleasure to recognize Bucksport Police Officer Matthew Smith, Officer Caleb Brooks, Director Sean Gagan, and Hancock County Sheriff Sergeant Daniel Howland for the life-saving award for their actions of June 25th in Bucksport.
So I'm going to move to recognize Sergeant Daniel Harlan for his life-saving actions on June 25th, 2021, and congratulate him on receiving the Hancock County Sheriff's Life-Saving Award. Nice job, folks.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, request permission to purchase laptop replacement computers 23 for cruisers at a total of $33,310, $28,800 from SEF funds, and the remaining $4,510 from E10-20-100 computer R&M, which currently has an unspent balance of $5,014.03.
And what's USDF?
Those are monies that were basically from the feds filtered through the state for COVID. And we were paid, let me check real quick. I believe it was $600 for full-time employees and $300 for part-time employees, both from patrol and in the jail, total $28,800. That was, again, Deputy Chief Winchester in Bucksport was kind of the administrator of that. And these are funds that we're going to need to expend probably by the end of the year. They're asking for an extension, but they may not. This gives us an opportunity to replace our laptops and the cruisers, which are 5 years plus old, and they're reconditioned, which is what we traditionally buy because of the cost. They come with a full warranty, just like you would if you bought a new one.
So they didn't come with these, suggested that this was a premium pay or hazard pay.
It came, is that it was monies to benefit the officers, is the way this came. And
So
we
what-
checked that we had been okay to use this for the
So
laptop.
what's it
That's
meant
what you want.
Direct payment, it wasn't.
No.
So I'm going to move to purchase 23 replacement laptops for cruisers at a total of $33,310 as requested, $28,800 from USEF funds, account G1251-00, remaining $4,510 from account E10-20-100 computer R&M.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next one I'll have Chief Kane. He's been working, this is a project he's been working on, had preliminary discussions with the board. This is just kind of follow up, and we're asking permission to go over RFP on the radio project that we discussed.
Want to jump? So we spoke to you briefly about this during the budget presentation. I don't know how brief it was, but during our presentation. This is an obvious need. I think I provided you with supporting documentation that demonstrates that need. The next step in this process is, of course, cost and how do we move forward with that. So that's what you have to request in front of you to be able to do so. We have specifications that we have developed in a route that we would like to take. So we're hoping that you will support us in this. We've tried to support this through the budget over the last 8 to 10 years. And there's no way we're ever going to get this through in a budgetary sense.
Is this, you anticipate this out of our AFP funds?
That was our request, and we hope that you would entertain that.
And if we, are you at all familiar with this, Kitty?
Scott and I reopened the discussion this week. So
Have you done enough research to assure yourself that this is an appropriate use?
I think him and I just have to have some more conversation, but I think we're headed in a direction. What I basically said is there a priority list there? Because there were several requests, I think, on their initial list, and to prioritize it, and then we could tackle it in that way. So I don't know if that means this is the priority, but
You mean the list from our agency?
Yeah.
This would be our priority. When this first became, the ARPA funds became available, we were asked for suggestions, and this was clearly one.
To me, this is a first step.
Well, the problem is that if we go out to RFP for this, we find out ultimately this can't be used for our funds. There are no other funds available in the budget for this, right?
That's correct.
Should we take that one step and get reassurance from Kitty that this truly qualifies before we waste all this time going out to RFP?
My feeling is that going out to RFP gives us the number that, we got to start somewhere. And we're not expending a lot of funds. We are expending some time. But to me, we've got to know what we're getting into, and this is how you do it.
Yeah, I'm quite confident, and I think Kitty and I would agree that based on information from other counties with regards to communications and how this has kind of really become to the forefront, much like the ambulance conversation, that this would qualify. Yeah, I think what Kitty is kind of saying, that when we reopened it was, I sent her a brief snippet, I think, and I didn't send her this, I didn't really have it at the time, but I think if she read that, it'd make her feel more comfortable. But I think just based on the emails from other counties and the general conversation on communications.
This doesn't include discussions that we may have had with regards to the new tower, right?
No, this is this is really hardware primarily. All
This is
of
a
our,
replacement for what we have now.
exactly.
Except digital.
In addition, that's correct. It modifies it from an analog system to a digital system, which is a step in the right direction. This isn't a be all end all. I think I was clear of that and hopefully clear in my memo to you. This isn't what we'd ultimately like to have, but with a given infrastructure that exists in the county where our towers are, I don't think we're ever going to get there.
Yeah, if we were to do it, this is a great opportunity, unless, the only other option really is community benefits. And I feel quite confident this falls under our, also the 250 isn't, that encompasses, like if we were to go with the tower as well, or.
So the yes and no. So that's not a build out of a tower, but so we have 3 towers that all have repeaters on them. And as we've built those out over the years, we built them in a way so they could be upgraded with this end goal in mind. So they're prepared for that. But as far as building out additional towers, no, that's not included.
And we're hoping that doesn't have to happen.
we're hoping that this resolves the issue, but as communications continue and things get put into the airwaves, this is going to be a continuing problem for everybody.
So it seems to me that if we approve the RFP process, we're simply approving going out and getting proposals.
Yes.
Once we get those, then we'll talk about where the money's coming from, how much we want to pony up, and so on and so forth, correct?
That's how I understand. This is a decision just to seek
Right.
proposal. It's not an approval of anything.
Right,
We don't know what we're approving now.
sorry, when the chief brought it to me in conversation, he said this is gonna take some time to develop, so I suggested that we both agreed to bring this up as soon as possible. And then during the RFP process, we can solidify, with Kitty. And even draft up a document that, will suffice all the requirements for art, but I think this is really a slam dunk.
Okay, so I'm going to move to approve seeking an RFP for transitioning to digital, portable, and in-car radios as requested by the sheriff.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just as a snippet, Worcester County is working on this and is going to do this, and I believe Oxford and Piscataquis. I haven't had any direct conversations with the sheriff, but I have had a direct conversation with the sheriff in Worcester County, and they're going ahead with it. So, thank you. Next, D, permission to ask for bids for 2022 cruisers. Might be pipe dream as far as getting vehicles. I saw PJ at the parade on Saturday and had a discussion with him. And it's the same answer. As soon as we get chips, we'll have vehicles. And unfortunately, because of the lower profitability of selling police cruisers and those types of things, they're selling the high-end Tahoes, the high-end Suburbans and stuff, and taking care of those. But what I'm asking for now, and obviously, it's depending on what the finalization of the budget is, to get it out there as quick as we can. And I've had conversations with dealers as far away as Pennsylvania, and they've all said, get on the list if you decide that you're going to go out for a bid, go out for bid. If we get it, get on the list, and when they come in, we'll progressively get them. So.
My experience, Scott, has been that it makes no difference whether you buy one or four. It's the same price per vehicle.
Correct. That's right.
So I'd suggest, gentlemen, that we authorize the sheriff to go out to bid. We don't specify the number we're going to buy. Let's see what the cost of it is.
Yeah.
We can discuss how many and when. And
I just put that number in there, Commissioner, so to
yeah,
give you an idea of where we're
and
going.
I think we budgeted.
I think we did.
Yeah,
We
that's.
we did. But again, if we could just simply allow the sheriff to go for bid, get a cost per cruiser, and delivery time is going to be the thing. I mean, Leo gave us a price last year.
Yeah, and he finally got one of the two that we ordered from him. And since we had gone out and purchased those in Massachusetts, he sold it to, I think, Lewiston, he told me.
We still should have bought it.
Hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? I don't think we ever expected we'd be in the situation that we are right now.
So if we approve going out to bid for four, we don't have to buy four.
I'm just suggesting that we allow the sheriff to go for bid for cruisers.
And I'll just say police cruiser
Yep, and
and spec it out.
like I say, there's no economy of scale for buying
No.
four as opposed to one, so we just authorize them to go out to bid for cruisers. And see what that yields.
So I'm going to move to approve seeking bids for 2022 cruisers as requested.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You say aye. Aye. You did, yeah, okay.
Thank you,
Motion
gentlemen.
carries.
I think I must have missed an item here. We have, it's not on there, approval for transfer of forfeited assets.
We have it on ours.
You do, okay. I have the document here for you, Commissioner, Chairman.
Gentlemen, we've done this in the past, and basically what this is they have going through the forfeiture procedure on a drug case. This is the total value of the currency and challenge, but it doesn't mean that that's how much we would get. We have an arrangement with NDEA, so it would be something less than that, but in any event, a motion this morning would approve us getting any or all of this asset.
I'm going to move to approve the transfer of forfeited assets, $7,440 in the Dodge Challenger from the state of Maine versus Keith Wedge case.
And to allow the chair to sign.
Second.
That's it, I gotta be,
Yeah, I'll add that to the motion.
and the motion is to allow the chair to sign. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't put it on there, but I guess I should have asked for permission to put out sealed bids for that Dodge Challenger. If we're going to accept that, we should start putting that together to get rid of that.
Well, there's been no order yet, right?
Yeah.
That's the order?
No, this is only
That's just the funds.
yeah, the court needs to know we'll accept this before the order. So there's an order coming.
I think we signed that last meeting.
Well, I thought they signed it.
That was a different one. I apologize.
All this is telling the court, yes, if you ultimately order that, we'll accept it. So you can't really get your order, so.
We won't have to open a new branch bank, but we'll get for that, just so you
Yeah,
know.
right, I know. Let us know, Scott, when you get your order,
Absolutely,
and then we'll,
absolutely.
for all the years I've been looking at this, I don't understand what this line is. Can you come here, please, Scott? It says here, therefore, the commissioners by vote. This line. Look, you
No, I don't think anything to do with all the dating and signing. I think that's just a split.
Are they asking for the vote?
There's a line in here that appears needs information from us. I don't know if it's a date.
Yeah, I think it covers there. I'm not sure. Looks like that's supposed to be the date. Maybe there's a situation where it's two different dates, but that looks like they're asking for the same date, so.
Give me a check on that. Bill.
Challenge is over.
Yeah, listen. Well, you guys are something I don't want to see. So we're taking, we voted, right?
Yes.
We did vote. You're all set, Scott.
Thank you. Last thing I have is request permission to remove Kenneth Quebec from the county payroll.
So moved.
Seconded. Isn't that interesting? I mean, he hasn't worked here for 15 years.
No, not that Kenneth Quebec. I'm a mechanic Ken Quebec.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I already.
Oh, I thought it was a.
Kenneth's still been on the payroll.
Oh.
That's not even funny.
That makes a lot.
That's not even funny.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
It is.
Ken served us, I should serve this here. for
Very,
30 years.
very kind, thoughtful person.
Did a good job. You're not going to try to replace him?
Not what we were paying $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion made and seconded, right? Any
Yes.
further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Last thing, just as a notice that Police Across America Caravan will be coming through Ellsworth on the 12th, which is Sunday. They'll be arriving at the main mall at around 9 o'clock. We have our ceremony to recognize them. We've been instructed to get them out by 10:15 because of their tight schedule. So we're inviting you to be there. We're going to recognize Vietnam era veterans. We're going to welcome them home. Probably many of us know that the Vietnam veterans were treated very, very poorly on their return from Vietnam. And this is just going to be an opportunity for us to welcome 25 of them home. Thank you for the gentlemen.
Thank you. You know, Kitty, we have a couple of nonprofits this morning, don't we?
We do.
Gentlemen, I really would like to let these people come up and get their award, so they don't have to sit through the rest of this meeting or the next agenda item. So, Kitty, if you could come forward, let's do these, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. First and foremost, we're pleased to request from Hancock County Commissioners their official approval to award the following funding as part of the American Rescue Plan nonprofit grant program for Acadia Fire in the amount of $10,000 for revenues lost due to cancellation of fundraising events, membership dues, etc. And we have Emily here.
So I'm going to move technology award of an art revenue loss grant to Acadia Fire FC in the amount of $10,000 as awarded by the Grant Awards Committee.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kitty, if you come forward. Hold the check right up there and come right in close here. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And secondly, we're pleased to request from the Hancock County Commissioners their official approval to award the following funding as part of the American Rescue Plan nonprofit grant program to Main Street, Bucksport, in the amount of $2,765 for revenues lost due to cancellation of events due to COVID. And John?
I'm going to move to acknowledge the award of an art revenue loss grant to Main Street Bucksport, the amount of $2,765 as awarded by the Grant Awards Committee.
Second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Okay, Kitty, we get to that in just 2 minutes. Morning, Andy. Good morning.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners, and thank you for coming on the schedule. I promised brevity this morning, so I'm going to do that. I'm giving you several documents here. The first is a single page, essentially a cover memo that describes the Emergency Management Performance Grant Program. You're welcome to read that at your leisure. I'll reference it a few times in my some of the comments. Back in October, I met with you, I appeared before you and shared with you the details regarding the Homeland Security grant program. That is one of the two main funding vehicles for emergency management here in the state of Maine. The other is EMPG, and that's the program that I'm here to discuss with you today. So rather than this just being an informative presentation, I actually have something that requires your attention and hopefully action, which is why I wanted to appear before you today, before year end. If you turn to the second page, you'll see front and back a sample of the actual contract that we engage in with the state of Maine for these federal dollars, the EMPG program. You have the first pages of what is approximately a 27-page application and contract agreement. So it's quite bureaucratic and administrative burdensome, to say the least. We go through an entire application process each year for this. And I want to say this is the 7th year now where the amount of our award is capped at $111,406. If that number is familiar to you, it is because that is the basis for our budget amount, our operating budget that you consider each year, which totals $222,812, exactly double that amount. The requirement of the EMPG program is that we have a 50% local match, and that represents that
doubled amount, and then we are reimbursed on a monthly basis up to a total of $111,406. Is that clear? Great. One of the opportunities that we used to have, and you hear us anecdotally refer to it as clipboard money, where when EMA engaged with agencies, volunteers, nonprofits in the conduct of our duties, exercises, trainings, and things of that matter, we would collect signatures on a roster. We would submit those rosters. Each name on that roster represented a dollar amount that would come back to us, and we accrued a considerable sum of money through that element of the program. That has subsequently been discontinued, which is why we don't really do that any longer.
Why do we still sign up?
Because I'm hopeful.
So
Because I'm hopeful.
we still do it, we just don't get money for
Yeah.
it.
That's right. I still need to show that we're out and about and we're doing our job. So that's the purpose there. As a substitute, I'm going to say what has come forward to us as one of the parameters of the EMPG program is the opportunity for us to capture and expend any unspent monies that would be due to us. So for instance, our contract, as you see, is for the $111,406. If, let's say in this current calendar year, the EMA budget underspends that amount, let's say we spend $101,000, we will have the opportunity to capture that unspent $10,000. The way we would do that is by spending $20,000 and being reimbursed at $10,000. So we successfully did this last year for 2018 monies. And the reason it was for 2018 because the federal award to the state of Maine, even though this program comes to us on an annual basis, it's actually a 3-year award from the federal government to the state of Maine. So when it begins in year 1, it expires in year 3. What I am proposing is that at the end of the 3rd year, any grant performance period, we would have the opportunity to essentially capture unspent monies. And it is truly a use it or lose it scenario. So what I would like to ask you to do is to find a vehicle, and I've spoken with Scott about this, and he's made some recommendations as to how we would structure it, is to essentially take our unspent funds that are approved as part of our operating budget each year, hold those in reserve, if you will, not necessarily a reserve account, just hold them in reserve. And then when the federal grant is ready to expire, we get permission to spend those monies down. If you go to the 3rd page in the attachment, you'll see that I have already made application to be able to do this for the EMPG fiscal year 20 award. Keep in mind when they say fiscal year, this is the federal fiscal year, so October 1st. You'll see in the middle box that I requested an extension to be able to spend this money down. And then in the bottom box, you'll see the program manager comment was that this has already been approved. So I am anticipating that our unspent monies from the EMPG 20 award will become available to us. The last time I did this was with EMPG 18, which was the first time this opportunity arose for us. Our unspent budget was approximately $30,000. I was able to capture not only our $30,000, but $10,000 additional dollars from another county that couldn't make use of their money, that didn't want to make use of their money. So the potential is there that we may not just get what is on our balance, but potentially in other counties as well, if it was unused. Commissioner Clark.
I'm just a little confused. The surplus is built up because you didn't spend the money,
That is correct.
but you have to, by the end of the 3rd year, you have to have spent the money in order to get half of it back.
In the end of the 1 year, at the end of the 1st year.
All right, so let's hypothetically, had 111,000 available. You
Yes.
spent 101, so you had 10,000 left over.
Correct.
How do you spend?
After 2 years, that money, that $10,000 will be granted back to us. And then we'll have to spend $20,000 to get that 10,000 back. Now, what I've done to do this is our award for EMPG is always based on our operating budget. But for that supplemental opportunity, I had used it for projects. So with the 2018 money, we spent approximately $80,000. We were reimbursed 40. That $80,000 expenditure went to the repeater upgrades.
Okay, so
project.
you could match the amount out of a reserve account, not out of the regular budget.
Correct.
At the end of 3 years.
That is correct.
So that's how you meet the match. You cover that.
To that one time that it's been done.
So if you have 30,000 left over at the end of 3 years, you're gonna spend 60,000 from your reserve fund to get to 30.
No. We have to spend an additional 30. Right. So I have to have an invoice that shows 60,000 and we'll be reimbursed.
I think I said that.
Yes,
In other words, you spend 60, you get 30 back. So
that's correct.
Well, you spend 30, but you had to spend 60 out of your reserve account.
That's
You put
correct.
30 back in.
Although I want to be clear, our period of performance to spend our grant award, that 111,406, is 1 year, one fiscal year. At the end of the 3 years, when it expires in Augusta, they then say, okay, well, Hancock, 2 years ago, you had this left over, here's your shot at it.
That 10,000 held by them or held by us?
It would be held by us.
So we get the full 111,000.
Excuse me, I misunderstood your question. No, they hold it.
They hold.
Right.
So at the end of 3
It's
years,
on a reimbursement
they
basis.
tell you how much surplus you had,
That's correct.
and you figure out how to cover the.
And like I said, not just how much we had, but potentially others that had and who are unclaiming it or unable to use it.
And we just need a project that meets the criteria.
I always have I always make sure that I have a project to meet the criteria.
Yeah, that's,
In other counties, you can't do that. You seem to be doing that.
For whatever reasons, they just, like I said, I not only got our $30,000 due us, and the reason I had such a large unspent amount was because it was the 6 months vacancy between Brad Newton's departure and Andrew Brady's hire. So it had essentially 6 months of salary that was unspent by us and had the opportunity to capture that. And then by the time all the paperwork was done, they said, oh, would you like another $10,000? I said, yes, please, thank you.
So what action do you need from us this morning?
I would like to see this year's operating budget, whatever balance that I might have, somehow held so that 2 years from now, I have the opportunity to spend that money and capture
I
it.
thought it has to help.
I'm talking about our unspent money of our 111,000.
Oh, I see.
isn't that done? Does that take action?
It generally flows to undesignated, so you got a couple options here. If you want to set it aside specifically, we could run that very similar to when I do the end of the year 70 account transfers. So say a department has $1,500 for a copier and they didn't spend anything out of it. At the end of the year, I bring a transfer sheet to the commissioners and they can take that 1,500 and put it into that G account, the savings account. It is, as we call it. So that's option one, or option two is I don't anticipate large sums of surplus from this. So much like we did the last time, by then, hopefully we've established a good undesignated amount. So in other words, you have opportunity to do the same thing, you just wouldn't set it aside. Setting it aside for a particular department for me is a little dangerous because other departments may consider the same. This is a little different. So that's, I'm just telling you what my
Other
concerns are.
departments do that. I mean, if the sheriff has
Right.
X amount of dollars in the 70 account,
Right.
he
That's,
wants to reserve that to a G account at the end of
Right.
the year if he doesn't spend it.
Yeah.
And that happens with other departments.
so I'm just telling you all of the options and yeah. So I don't, if you wanted to do that, I don't see a huge issue with it, just for that reason.
Well, see, unless I don't understand this whole picture, whatnot, to me, if a department head is fiscally responsible enough to end up with a surplus with the intention of reserving that for something, then I think they deserve to be recognized. In other words, if Andy started right off the year said, I'm going to try to save 10 grand and get it reserved, and he did, then we should reward him for his efforts and give it.
I agree with that concept, but that's in a perfect world. It could happen that, you know, beyond everybody's jail, for instance. You know, I understand both sides of this. And I'm I'm hesitant to, because I think it's what Mr. Sankey's asking, I think is done. We don't need action. I think it's done anyways, isn't it?
No, we do need action to reserve, right?
The action will come later at the end of the year.
Yeah,
You could do an action today, or if you need a vote, or you could do it by general consensus that you'll take this under consideration at the end of the year.
It would be at the end of the year, right, Andy?
Yes, sir.
You would,
Right.
and so
yeah.
the best part about that, at least the safest part about that is we have an exact figure. We don't
Right.
have that today.
Well, it's really not going to be until the end of April because that's when the state closes it out for us.
We wait
We're
that,
we're a quarter behind.
can we wait that long technically? Reserve that amount?
We can figure something out. Yeah, I generally have to do that. I mean, we can't wait till April if you want to qualify audit, but there are ways to get around that.
Yeah, but I don't see us taking action today to reserve something because we don't know what it is.
Exactly, and so, but that question would be better for Andrew is if just a consensus or, a general agreement that they'll consider it at the end of the year.
And that was my goal too.
Will satisfy,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, we're crazy not to consider it.
Yeah, and I certainly keep track of, we know how much money we've spent of
Yeah.
our 111,406. And what is due us is what's delayed by April. So they're
right,
horribly behind always in April.
right, so we'll know the number. We'll know the number much earlier than April.
And then we'll take
It's
action
just,
when
right,
we know.
And the project is the repeater upgrade project that's underway for wildfire and EMS in Hancock County at each of the towers that Chief Deputy Kane spoke to a little bit earlier. So, and we're not necessarily spending the money on departmentally on anything specifically, but broader projects.
Which has been the case the last 10 years, right?
Spillman is a great example, yes.
He's spent hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, no,
on
he
these
explained
things.
to it.
So,
yeah,
the last sheet is what I'd like to bring to your attention now. And without getting long with you, honestly, keep this under 15 minutes. You will see Hancock County, in the top third of the sheet there. And you will see in the contracted allocation column, in from the right, our 111,406. If you look at Knox County down below, you'll see they received 137,578 with a significantly smaller population than us. There are many examples on here of counties that receive more than Hancock with less population density. And you'll see other counties with greater population density that are receiving less than Hancock County. So this number for us, this 111,406, is arbitrary. It's been frozen by the state for the last 7 years, and frankly, it's a mess. There's no equity in this whatsoever. So I have been one of the loudest advocates saying that, you know what, we really need to come up with a plan to even this out and make sure that the counties that are deserving based on population risk and so on have the opportunity to share in the complete total of the $1.9 million.
That isn't that difficult, is it? I mean, basically, you add up the population, 1.3 million, and then you say, okay, Hancock County has 6% of that population. We get 6% of the 1.9 million, right?
Commissioner, like I said, it's been 7 years. So
It's amazing because it's so simple to solve. And
I agree, but it's been but as I shared with you in my monthly report, I'm making some headway. I and some other counties, both counties like Hancock, who stand to potentially see a reduction in our grant award, and others that'll see an increase, are frankly forcing the state to finally address this. So that's the intent, and I share this with you just so you know what's coming. I suspect that we will see that 111,406 number in all likelihood reduced for Hancock County. But when it is and when it does, we'll be prepared and we'll have other opportunities. For instance, using the Homeland Security Grant Program, which is reimbursed at 100%, see some of our expenses shifted to that instead.
And I can't remember where I read this, but part of the, there's some folks that want to split it, based on population, but there's also some other factors, and that's probably why this hasn't moved. One is density, and, like, for instance,
valuation.
Or County probably don't need as many towers as Aroostook does or Hancock does.
So without getting into those types of things or even addressing risks and, infrastructure and things like that,
Yeah.
this number was literally frozen on me. The switch was thrown. And if you had an EMA agency that had 4 staff members, that's what you were funded at. If you were one that had 2.5, that's what you were funded at. It just meant no rhyme or reason to it. So it's been very, very frustrating, very difficult to work with. However, we've, we have capitalized upon it every way that we can to make sure that we're getting our due. And your action, the potential action that I've requested this morning will certainly help us fulfill that. And again, potentially capture not just ours, but that unused by others as well.
Because the state is great for doing, they did that with the jail funding. We used to have to compute based upon actual population. The state said, that's too much work. They froze it. They took a picture, froze it, and it's been that way forever. And it's so inequitable today compared to when it was froze.
Yes. So
Okay, Andrew.
I'm very grateful for your time and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to move to accept and file the EMA Director's report as presented, in memo dated November 30th.
Seconded. Dated.
My monthly report, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Discussion, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you,
Thank
Commissioner.
you.
Hello, Eve.
Okay, Kitty, I think we're back with you. You're not blessed with John's presence this morning?
No, he's in Rhode Island. He did submit a report, which is, should be
Should
in
be
your
in the
package.
books, yeah. It's not in the PDF, data now.
It does look like that he does have a couple of town projects, so he'll be bringing forth at the next meeting for discussion.
So there's really nothing to discuss on broadband this morning, is that correct, Kitty?
Correct, but we have another broadband Zoom meeting tomorrow evening. And they continue to follow up. The survey, Becky, is that in your hands yet? Broadband survey
The hard copy of the
to
survey?
put on the website.
No, not yet.
Okay.
No.
So they're working to get the broadband survey up and running and on the website. And then they'll start following up next week with all the municipalities, introducing themselves again, start to talk about specific projects. And then get that push for the survey out for the month of January.
So is this Zoom meeting for the public again, like we had?
It is, hopefully to bring in any of the municipalities who weren't involved in the first one. I've been reaching out to them specifically on that issue. I suspect it's going to be a small turnout this time.
Small turnout. Okay.
And then as far as premium pay, the 7 municipalities that did ask to be a part of the program have been notified about their match. And I think at least 2 have already notified Scott with some sort of certified documentation. There have been some questions. Bar Harbor's treasurer had problems with math. I had to kind of sit down and work her through that, but we're getting there. There's only 1 municipality I haven't spoken to yet, but everybody else is either waiting for an official vote from their council or from the town. So those are moving along just fine.
We spoke yesterday, was that Bar Harbor we were
That
talking
was.
about?
Yeah.
Did you get
I
back
did.
to them? Are they all
Yeah,
set now?
Yep, we had to do some math, so.
So they're all set?
If they, and some of them, if they choose to go beyond the original parameters, they know, I think Ellsworth was one, that it will not be matched by the county.
Right.
So their match would only be used.
I was gonna say, yeah, if you could update them on Ellsworth,
Yeah.
I got a memo this morning, where they're going with the 1,000. And then using the county's portion to match, but they're also including everybody. We had a discussion about one individual. And so they also indicated in the memo that there were a few officers that kind of served mostly within that time frame, but didn't match the exact criteria. So they're going to fund that, but the county's portion will meet the criteria that we established. Does that sound right?
So there's only, like I said, Blue Hill's the only one I haven't heard from. And I'll continue to follow up with them to see where they're at. So those seem to be moving along just fine.
And while we're at it, if I could, I can't remember if you replied to the email. Trenton, I answered the email this morning. Trenton, Fred Erlen back let me know that they are going to pay theirs out on the 14th. We have a warrant this week, so unless the commissioners object, I mean, I trust Trenton. Is it okay if I schedule a check to go to Trenton?
I've always felt that once you and Katie were satisfied that they were going to meet the criteria.
You shall continue. Yeah, thank you.
is what we're really going to do. Yeah.
I would say that several people, Trenton, Lemoyne, or Harbor expressly express their gratitude for this. I think they sort of maybe thought it was pie in the sky. Now that it's real, they're very grateful for
Yeah.
this assistance and felt it was really a good thing to do, whatever the amount you did. And then Commissioner Clark, did you want to bring up the nonprofits again?
Yes, I created a document for nonprofits. You got yours, you have yours in front of you. Katie, did I get that to you? Just a quick refresher. When we started this program early this year, we set aside $300,000. We capped each grant recipient $10,000. And I remember Paul's comment that we all agreed with, that we'll burn through this in a hurry. And so we capped it at 10 because we wanted to spread the money, the grant money around to several different agencies. Well, as it turns out, at the end of the program, we spent just about half of what we intended to spend, or what we had set aside anyway. And we didn't burn through it. Surprisingly, and I don't know what the reason is, surprisingly, we didn't get the applications for the grants that we had anticipated. But what I did notice was that some of these nonprofits sustained significant losses. And what I'd like to propose this morning is that we look at those that did sustain significant losses and consider taking some of the balance that didn't get awarded and go back and award some additional funds to some of these that did have substantial awards. And what I did, gentlemen, is I took the total amount of the total losses that they reported, which is $300,000. And then I set up a percentage of each entity's proportional loss to that 300,000. Then I looked at that and I wanted significant losses. So I looked at any one of those who had more than 10% of the 300,000, set those aside, and basically took 75,000 of the ungranted funds and then took the percentage of those four that had substantial losses proportionally. For example, there was the loss for those four was 242,000. Home Co-op, for example, had 40% of that. They had 97,000. And so I took 40,000 of the 75, rounded off, is $30,000. So if you can go down through the organizations, the Home Co-op, the neighborhood house in Southwest, the Grand here in Ellsworth, D.R.L. Stonington Historical, with their individual proportional percentage, and for a total of $75,500. Now, when we set up the $300,000, that was pretty much just we just picked a number. I mean, there was no logic behind that. The logic, though, for the 10,000 was so that we could spread that money around to several recipients, believing there would be more recipients. In fact, I told Katie, said, keep track of the dates you receive this, because the first ones is the first ones we pay off, and we get too many requests we want to be sure to pay off. We never got that. And so the 10,000 is really quite arbitrary, as was the 300,000. So I'm suggesting that there's nothing, the 10,000 wasn't really cast in stone. There was some logic to it, but I would like to see this program succeed in doing what we wanted to do in the first place, and that was support the nonprofits who had losses, and I'd like to do that proportionally with the extent of their losses. And so I'm asking you to consider this morning awarding an additional $75,500. Home co-op in the amount of 30, neighborhood house in the amount of 12, a grant in the amount of 17,500, J.L. Stone's Historical Society in the 16,000, again, for a total of 75,500. After this, we will simply close out the nonprofit grant program, and we will have spent $225,879 for, and leaving an unspent balance of a little over 74,000. Gentlemen, your comments?
I'm in support of the idea. I mean, I think it's using the money how we planned on using it. It's going to help the nonprofits. We have all the information so we can qualify. So it's not something that we're creating more burden on Kitty to verify. And I think it's an appropriate use of the funds.
Paul, I understand the concept, the program, it is what it is. We can get as many applications. I would rather see us hold on to these balances to see there's going to be some changes in legislation that, we may have some priority projects that, we're this short on. It is a small amount of money relatively to the big picture. I get that, but, maybe if the amounts were bigger, we would have, I don't know. I think this could be done at any time. I don't feel that it has to be done now. I'd rather see if there's legislation changes that make this I don't know. I don't feel the rush to make a decision. That's my only point.
Well, because there really isn't a rush. I'd just like to close out the program. And right now, I mean, 74,000 is just a tad over 1/10 of 1% of total funds we're going to receive. We still have literally half uncommitted of what we expect to receive from the 10.6 million. So, I mean, it's not like we're bumping all the money we have. And I'd like to get the funds out. So now we have the comments. I want to make the motion that we award an additional amount to home in the amount of 30, the neighborhood house in the amount of 12, the grant in the amount of 17,500, the J.L. Stone's Historical amount of $16,000.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded.
The other thing I want to just say too is, even as we close this out, I think, like you mentioned, I mean, we still don't know how all the funds will get used, obviously, in the end. And I don't think we need to know that right now, or even should know that necessarily right now. The pandemic is not over as much as sometimes we all kind of seem to be acting like it is. I mean, all you have to do is look at the numbers in the hospital, and we don't know what direction different things are going to go. At some point in this funds, we might find there's another opportunity to create a new, different grant program that will have learned from this particular program to adapt it to whatever that new situation is. I just want us to keep it in mind that just because this grant program's done, that doesn't mean there might not be other opportunities down the road where the county needs to step up and help out nonprofits or other folks.
And that's part of my point.
Yeah.
And it's so unfortunate because it scares the dickens out of me that we may be right back where we were a year ago with regards to COVID and what we're doing. And you're absolutely right. Good point, John, because we may be setting here next spring, next summer and whatnot, saying we need to do another grant program.
On Zoom.
But another grant program.
Yeah, no.
Nonprofits.
I'm just saying, yeah, we might be sitting here.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the vote carries 2-1 in favor. So when would we cut these checks?
Would you like to have them here or just notify them?
I'd like to, I'd like to, no, we don't need it here. They've been here once. We'll get the checks to them. I'd like to, I want to talk to you about one of these recipients. So anyways, when the checks are ready, okay? I don't know who I'm talking to.
Well, it can be done as early as, get it done in the next warrant, or it can wait till the next AP, not till the end of the year, or 28. But
To me, we've just taken action to do it. We should do it.
Well, yeah. Okay, we'll talk about the checks. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Kitty, yes, we're closing it up. We don't accept any more. They're gonna be late. We don't miss the deadline. It's over, except John's good point that we may resurrect the whole thing and do it again.
Or, could.
That's what I think. Yep. Good, Kitty?
Anything else for me?
The ambulance, ARP on the ambulance study. We ultimately had a very good meeting last week with many of the important players in the regional ambulance service for Hancock County. And thankfully, Northern Light was here because the whole thing was premised upon Northern Light's lack of availability on the calls. Well, during that meeting, Northern Light presented a report that said that they were only unavailable 4% of the time. Out of 2,600 calls, there was only 100 that they were unavailable and it depended upon mutual aid. That number could have been a little higher, and I think it's all in how you report that, because City of Ellsworth had almost 100 unavailable. So, but it doesn't make any difference. Everybody on that Zoom meeting that we had, and in that meeting here, talked about the severe problem of staffing. It all comes down to staffing. Northern Light said that it was their intention to provide availability for 100% of the times, but there are times when they had two ambulances at the station here in Ellsworth, and at nighttime, they only had staff enough for one. At every, whether it's fire chiefs in Bar Harbor and Northeast, the Hancock County Fire Chiefs Association, everybody emphasized the severe critical shortage of staffing. And so the purpose of this study group for me is first of all, to validate and certify that there is a shortage in eligibility. Second of all, what was causing it? And is there anything that the county can do to assist in a remedy for that? And I've succeeded in 2 out of the 3. I understand that there was, to some extent, a lack of availability. We understand that it's all centered around staffing. What can the county do? Well, I mean, I literally thought maybe when I first started that we may be faced with having to have our own regional ambulance service. Well, that's not the answer. We would be faced with the same critical staffing shortage if we tried to start a regional ambulance service. What we need to do is we need to find ways to get incentives to the public to start applying for EMT and paramedic jobs. And so I've done a report, and I'd like to have that report, give a motion to approve that report, not approve, but to acknowledge that report and have that made part of the record. But at some point, I may be coming back to you with suggestions for how the county can use their ARP funds to promote applicants getting involved in EMS through EMT programs or paramedics and/or paramedics. I don't know what to do with it yet, but Scott and I have been talking about some possibilities and whatnot. But at this point, there will not be any further meetings with this particular study group. We know all we need to know. We know what the problem is. we just have to, we as commissioners, if we want to take any action that helps to remedy it, we've got to come up with some kind of a plan or something that we can do to assist EMS in Hancock County with this. So that's my report, and I have no recommendation. We don't need any action other than to, whatever you do, to accept the report. And at some point, I may come back later with more information and perhaps a request to use some of the AIP funds.
And my feeling on that is that that's not only a regional problem, that's a statewide, a national problem. And, you know, there are scholarships out there, you know, from a lot of different organizations to help train folks, and they're just, nobody's responding to them. So.
Now,
you know,
Northern Light spent $75,000 to recruit 15 people to put them in the EMT program. When they got all done, they got one
Yeah, so
individual.
So, you know, throwing money at it may not be the answer either. So, you know, we don't know what the answer is. But, you know, all we can do now, in my opinion, is recognize it's a real problem. And if somebody's got a solution, you know, we certainly would listen to it and potentially participate in it if there was any reason to, or if there was any, if it made sense to us.
And I'm still a little fuzzy on exactly what Atlantic Partners' role is in the EMS system, but evidently they're the advocate for the emergency medical services, the state Maine emergency medical service. So Atlantic Partners is basically, they do the groundwork for EMS for the state of Maine. Rick Petrie is one of their directors and whatnot, and wants to raise $1.5 million for a radio television ad program. And he's already been to the county manager once and was turned down, but he wanted $100,000 from everybody. I said, well, it really should be a proportional amount based upon how much they've got and not 100 from everybody. He did that again, sent it to me, but I don't know. I would like to see, if we're going to spend our ARP funds in Hancock County, I'd like to see that have some sense that that's going to benefit the EMS service in Hancock County directly. So I'm not ready today to ask you to support Atlantic Partners' request for funding for that media program.
Okay, so I'm going to move to accept and file the report of the Hancock County Regional Ambulance Study Group dated December 7th, 2021.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Katie, that's not going to be anything more with that until perhaps at some point there may be some suggestion that we fund some program to improve that situation. So that being done, are we done with that?
For now, I think we're.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you very much.
Stop the clock.
Moving on now to the airport.
Good morning.
Morning, Leroy.
You got the copy of the monthly report.
So I'm going to move to accept and file the airport director's report as presented in his memo dated November 23rd.
Seconded. Discussion. Item D. UTV, that's a female, not male UTV? Is that-
Yeah, right, yeah,
The UTV is her. So-
her, yeah. Oops,
Oops. Very good. Okay, hearing nothing on discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
and Scott and I have been working on the budget, so we request the approval of the 2022 Hancock County Airport's operating budget of $792,253.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
I didn't know if anybody wanted to talk about it, but I've looked at it and I'm gonna move to approve the 2022 Hancock County Bar Harbor Airport operating budget of $792,253 as presented.
Do you want to discuss? Is there any information you need? Here's, we're all set. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Request permission to remove Josh George from the county payroll.
So moved.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request permission to sell 2 items of surplus equipment by sealed bid. A Bombardier chassis snowcat track machine with a backhoe and mower. And the second is a 16-foot Fisher Marine boat with 2 outboards, a 25 horse and a 6 horse, and with a trailer. This equipment that's been sitting around here for some time. You know, I got to be honest, I haven't seen them move since my tenure, and I hadn't really seen them move prior to my tenure in several years. So it's been on. They was on the docket to get rid of some of this surplus equipment back before Brad left, and we kind of left it alone last year. So we just want to pick it away at our list. We have a list of several items, but we didn't want to put it all on one agenda item.
So I'm going to sell I'll take one at a time just so we've moved to sell by sealed bid the Bombardier snowcat machine with backhoe and brush mower as recommended.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to move to sell by sealed bid the 16-foot Fisher Marine boat with 2 Johnson 2-cycle outboard motors and trailers recommended.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anything else, Leroy?
No, that's it for me. I'm easy.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Julie.
Morning. I just have a request to go out to RFP for software vendor for our recording system.
I noticed somewhere here in the report that you'd done this a few years ago and you weren't satisfied with the product.
We have a 5-year contract and it ends next year, at the end of November. It's a long process to go through it, not real happy. We had a vendor we were real happy with, and they were sold like 3 times in a very short period of time, and it made it very difficult to work with them. So where we'd like to get back to now that they have stayed owned by the same company for some time. So.
So I'm going to move to go out to RFP for a recording software vendor as requested.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're all set, Julie?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a transfer sheet from probate.
You get, Beck might have that in her file.
Yeah, it was in the book. Or in the PDF.
Yeah.
It's, we have the original.
Yeah.
What's your pleasure, Joe?
So I move to approve and sign the transfer between accounts as requested in the transfer request memo dated November 23rd.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gentlemen, I have that right here, if you'll take a minute and sign. It's in this bag. Dennis is not here.
I think he's up there on the screen. I just isn't looking for him.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
we have Dennis's, report.
Copy this to Beck.
So I'm going to move to accept and file
Or actually, she's.
maintenance director's monthly report as presented in this memo dated December 2nd.
Seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unorganized territory. Good morning, Millard. You around? Oh, Dennis, are you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Millard, are you with us this morning?
I am. Thank you, Commissioners. I did not submit a written report, but there are no changes in the status of anything. We have all snowplow contracts are in place, all fire contracts are in place, and all trash contracts are in place. And there were no requests from the general public. I'm still trying to schedule something with John to talk about broadband, but everything else is running along pretty smooth.
Millard, did we get all the details worked out on the scholarship?
Yes. Yes, you approved the scholarship last meeting and
And you're all set with
yeah, I asked for him, the applicant, to authorize Maine Maritime Academy to submit invoices to me and I would pay him.
Good. Very
Haven't
good.
received anything yet, but
Okay, very good.
I have one item, Chair, if I could.
Yep.
Millard, good morning.
good morning.
You, for a minute there, I thought you sounded like the president. You feeling okay? A little hoarse?
I think so.
Maybe it's just probably just the audio in here. That's all my hearing. I don't know. Hey, just a reminder, there is still one ATV grant item. And it was the one, I think, before the last one we just finished off, and I think signed paperwork was sent to the state through you, but I didn't get a copy of the sign. So anyway, if you go back to those emails and just kind of square me up on that, we appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
All of them have been submitted to the state, and I think you may have some of them back from the state already.
Yeah, we have the money in hand. It's just, I'll follow up with you with the email to square it up.
Just a paper trail we haven't caught up with. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me, Commissioners?
Looks good, Millard. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Bob, good morning. RCC gentleman, we have his report.
I'm away. Thank you.
I'm going to move to accept and file the RCC Director's monthly report as presented.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Bob.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Since they're all
This
morning.
makes it nice. I'm sorry it's so quick, but it's.
Today was the
makes
day
it-
that he's had a little unofficial truth serum, so if you want to know anything, might be. He's a little groggy with a couple
I
issues.
will share one brief thing with you. Last night or this morning at midnight, I received a call from dispatch, our complete radio suite, with the exception of Ellsworth Fire and PD, went down. We had a power surge or a bump here. We ended up calling Browns. I came in as well. We discovered two power supplies that had gone into fault mode that powered down both independent radio console systems. About half an hour, 45 minutes, we're back up and running, but that was in the middle of the windstorm that was knocking lines and trees down. So we were able to get that back up. The dispatcher didn't immediately recognize we had an issue because the backup console was way in the back of the room. And there was no alarm indication to them. They looked up and all the county fire, sheriff, EMS, all those are grayed out, not accessible. So we got those back up and running fairly quickly.
It had nothing to do with the wind, though.
Only that the power fluctuation here in the building, the process of that, those UPS power supplies are designed not to do that. Both, I thought we lost the radios upstairs in the attic. I thought we had a catastrophic failure. Fortunately, Sergeant Harlan and I were headed upstairs because they were in the office and heard the alarm going off in the server. And we were able to identify that our equipment was not powered out. So we ended up powering that back up. We did replace the power supply for the old legacy system, the one in the square that we had. I'll be talking with Chuck about getting those two. We have two servers that go independent. In theory, one goes down, the other one stays up. They're both powered by the same UPS. So we're talking to Chuck about getting those I think that's the original plan with the new server. That was one of those issues that we, shortly after, we had reports started firing casting, so.
Well, Bob, if there's one problem that I understand over the last several years and whatnot, is that when we have a power failure, we find those emergency packs
Yeah.
aren't working. And
Yeah.
needed to be replaced and didn't get replaced. I thought that was part of.
Well, we did a bunch of that, and I thought we were talking rounds about the one for the old Motorola system, but apparently we didn't do that. I'll double check on that, because I thought we had.
Is that part of Brown's maintenance program to
Not
replace?
really,
those?
because that legacy system is kind of, it's just there as, we own it, it's just kind of, this is the last year of the service contract, that I don't know if that power supply, specifically, I haven't talked to Rick about that.
Well-
We find that occasionally here and there, is they work like they're supposed to all the time, until it's midnight on a windy night, that suddenly something happens, and I'm gonna be educating the staff on where those are in the room, so that they can identify that quickly, so it doesn't require us to come in. And I did that before I left. It said, "This happens again, reset this box right here and come back up." So, but they did a good job of recognizing that and getting the people going. It just was very busy.
Good, great, thank you. The jail would like us to remove Susan Ellis from the county payroll.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Monica, you have some bills you'd like to pay?
I'm gonna move to approve the monthly bills and warrants as presented.
Second. Do we have a memo? Do you have the memo?
Should be right here. You have the signature.
We do. Yep. The motion made and seconded for
Present the
say the
signature.
warrant memo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Gentlemen, I'm going to move that we authorize the transfer of $3,146.58 from G 1070-175 to G 125104. Second. Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Monica, anything else this morning from the treasurer's office?
Nothing else.
Okay. Got the health insurance contributions.
Yep. Have you got a page in front of you? Oh, it's right, like that. There, yeah. So it's that time of year, in the budget, I did increase non-union, $5. I believe we did not increase last year. Jail stays static as we are looking to negotiate with them. And on a side note, I've been in a little bit of discussion with different parties at the jail, and I guess they were waiting for me to send them a date. Waited awful long time to tell me that, so I gave them a date of the next meeting. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, but I think we all would be, it'd be beneficial to all of us if we got this done. RCC and the sheriff's office went up per contract. So seeking your approval on this document.
So the action we're taking simply increases $5 for the non-union.
Correct. Yep.
Gentlemen, motion's in order.
Move to approve the 2022 health insurance contributions policy as presented and recommended.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So, we have have to take final action on our.
Yep. Yep. Have you got a copy of the computation sheet? Yep, on the commissioner tab there in front of you.
So I'm gonna move to approve the 2022 Hancock County budget of $9,866,556 as presented with an amount of $6,991,339 to be raised through taxation, representing a 5.4% or $362,457 increase over the 2021 amount raised through taxation, and a $19,396, and $19,396 over the LD1 target. I think I've covered everything.
Motion made and seconded.
Thank you, BAC, and thank you, everybody who made this happen.
Any further discussion?
Have we,
Pardon?
have we discussed exactly where that transfer's coming?
Well, all we do, as I understand it, is that we authorize that we authorize the transfer. We don't have to
So we don't have
designate
to-
where that comes from
Okay.
until,
Correct.
when, if we need
Just want
to.
to make sure.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think in my notes, I might have failed to elaborate on that. But if you remember the figures I gave you last time, I think I've given them a couple times. There's no apparent change to that. At this time, the projected surplus for the county, due to both deeds and good management is available. We'll also, part of that should offset the negative fund balance at this point, which is minimal. We've been working to address that. And the other are the ARP funds. Again, and as legislation changes, in anticipation of that, that would definitely open the door to being able to use that indirectly. Yeah. And good old community benefits if it comes down to that, but yeah, so.
It's good. Okay. Have we voted? Yeah.
No.
I'm going to call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Scott, at what point did you, which you're going to give us that amount from our funds that,
It hasn't changed from before. I think the last number I gave you was $500,000.
it's,
That, I mean, it's like, 501 something. That's according to that.
so you think you pretty much nailed it right down to the number? Huh?
Yeah, it's a scary number. But really, and the emphasis behind a lot of this new flexibility, this trying to be flown through the legislation, is the fact that some of the convoluted interpretation of that formula, as well as the interim rule. I mean, it's not specific, but it sort of is. And I think that they want to open up that flexibility to eliminate. I think they didn't anticipate that as many people would be afraid to spend this money as there is.
Bookkeeping wise, are we going to put that somewhere in like a G account and identify that as? Where does that?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So bookkeeping
again,
wise, we'll show $501,000 deduction from our ARP funds, and then.
Oh, that figure. We can and we should. I'm not so sure if you're ready to do that today,
I don't care,
but
I'm just wondering if
yes, at
we
some
have a number
point.
that we could identify as, okay.
Yep. And really, again, it's that, what's the final legislation? Final legislation comes out, again, I think the intent is to eliminate that
To eliminate,
revenue loss formula. That's really what the new legislation is probably 78% to cover.
I don't understand what you mean with eliminating.
Eliminate so that you don't have to go through that requirement. In other words, the spending capabilities will be so broad that it won't be necessary. So you could do you could go to capital investments. You could, I think you even talked about even road projects.
But if you
building
take the
projects.
501,000 out of the ARP funds
Mhm.
and put them into a separate account, now that can be used for anything, right? It's not restricted to the ARP criteria.
Correct.
So that's my point, is that if we got that out, got that into an account, now that's available for, just like CBA, available for any other funds, any other projects or purposes that we want.
That is an option, yeah.
Well, what option are you selecting with regards to that fund?
Right, well, I looked at it because we wanted to have broader capabilities to spend the money. And that's what I'm saying is that the new legislation is trying to go through. Well, it'll do two things. It'll maybe eliminate the need to gain broader flexibility because it'll come out through the final ruling. And if you have broader flexibility to spend, it may cover all the projects that you want to do. So there's going to be less money available to do that.
Yeah, but broader doesn't mean unfettered. No, there's still going to be a criteria, but
Based on what I'm understanding right now, I think it will be.
Well, I don't think it's anything that we're gonna have to decide today.
no,
But we know that that's,
right. I'd like to see that though, just like CBA, it's a concrete amount setting there that it's available to us for other purposes. That's all. That's the only thing I was looking for.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have the original confirmation sheet for signatures?
In fact, my now one.
Yeah. We can sign it while we're reading it.
Is there anything left in?
The last item, gentlemen, we have on the agenda this morning is finalizing the abatement appeal from Dalton versus the Town of Sullivan. Quick reference is that came to us, we denied it, went to the Superior Court, they overturned it, sent it back to us. In the meantime, there was a settlement by the town and the applicant. And as a result, it no longer needs to, we no longer need to deliberate on that application. Point of order, though, if we received an application for an appeal by an applicant, and before we could hear that appeal, there was a settlement by the town, I think it would be incumbent upon us for the applicant to withdraw that appeal. But
Either that or give us a stipulation that it's been settled and we no longer need to hear it.
well, yeah,
Same thing.
right, but the onus of eliminating that from action is on the applicant before the hearing. It seems to me that once we have a hearing, we now have that case on our desk, and
The Chair, I usually request something in writing indicating a settlement's been agreed to that's addressed to the commissioners and essentially basically stipulates that, so somewhere in that I'm removing my application. If that helps any.
well, I'm just trying to set up a process in the future for these that I think in the case of once it's been heard, under the right, we could dismiss once, but we wouldn't want to dismiss a case that hadn't been heard yet, which should have been withdrawn by the applicant.
Well, yeah, in this case, what happened is that it was heard and went through the court system and the court told us what to do. From what I understand, because of this, now we no longer need to do
But
that.
you know, an argument can be made that we should still, we have an order from the court to deliberate again and to set the value. And you can understand that there could be an argument to be made that we should deliberate. And ideally, in this case, we set the value at $135,000, which was the settled upon amount. That we shouldn't be dismissing this because the court's ordered us to deliberate again and set the value. And so it's easy for us now because they've been agreed upon amount by the town and the applicant of 135, but that should be our course of action, that we should deliberate, set the value at 135,000 rather than dismiss.
Well, I don't think we should dismiss. I think the whole thing is moot because of somebody else's action. So
We've got to take some official action here. We've either got to deliberate, set the value, and notify the town of the value, or we've got to dismiss it. This is still sitting here waiting for final action by us. So what do you want to do? Either we're going to dismiss it, or we're going to deliberate, set a value, and notify the town and the applicant what the value that we have set.
Well, I think that's kind of dangerous. I
mean, it's rather radical because the easiest thing to do is dismiss it. Who's going to complain? I mean, the court's not going to complain, the applicant's not going to complain, the town's not going to complain. So, I mean, but we've got to take some action though to resolve this matter. It's still pending on my desk.
Well, but I think, you know, in Mr. Pelleggi's letter, it says, please let me know if the commissioners require a stipulation of dismissal signed by all council. I think we do need that, but I think that our administrator has done that. So,
Well, this
so that's a stipulation of dismissal.
This letter tells us that there's nothing more that we need to do for this case and that they're consenting to us dismissing it. I don't know what this commissioners require stipulation.
Well, that's what the dismissal document is. That's the document that would say we agreed to have this dismissed.
Yep,
And I
that's
think,
what this letter is. I mean, that's this letter says dismiss it.
Yeah, request to appeal.
So execute a settlement.
I think as long as you take official action, that you recognize receiving the letter and that all parties have come to an agreement that there's no further action at this time required by the commission.
Because he says Pelleggi is requesting the appeals dismissal.
Right.
So that's what we should be doing this morning is that we vote to dismiss the matter of Norton versus the town of Sullivan. I'm going to move that with regards to the abatement appeal request of Norton versus the town of Sullivan, that we dismiss this matter based upon a request by the town's attorney to do so. Seconded.
how about saying both attorneys?
We don't know what the other attorney said.
Yes, we do, because it says, in here it says, please let me know if the commissioners require stipulation of dismissal signed by all council.
Yeah, this letter went to all council as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think what he's saying, if you want the official documentation, that letter that's signed by all council, everything on one page, that got requested, they'll provide it.
Yeah.
But all parties have been notified. I mean, I notified all parties that were hearing it today. Yeah,
Why are we making this so difficult?
I think you're on track.
Yeah, I think your
Well,
motion,
I think it's fine.
if your motion said all council instead of town's council, I'd second that.
Well, I mean,
You understand?
Dan Pelleggi is not going to infer that the other council has agreed to this. Scott Flood, if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So I'm, but nevertheless, we don't have anything from Scott Flood saying, I agree with this.
Well, then maybe we need, okay. I see your point. Maybe we need to take action to request that stipulation of dismissal.
I believe that Scott Flood is agreeable to this. He hasn't told us that, but Dan Pelleggi said he did, and Dan Pelleggi's not going to infer that if it wasn't true. I'm going to ask for a call for motion as given and call a vote on that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I voted aye,
Okay,
but the motion wasn't seconded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
John.
John seconded.
Oh, it did, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't-
No, all right, so this action finalizes
Yeah.
and resolves this appeal. Gentlemen, the next meeting is the last one of the year on the 21st. I will tell you as for agenda items, whatnot, I've asked a couple of the department heads to give us an end of the year update on some of the issues that's been going on during the year. So there will be some of that in the last meeting. If you can think of anything else that you'd like to hear at the end of the year, let me know. We can put it on the agenda and get that to the department heads.
I was just wondering whether there was material for another, for the second meeting, but it sounds like there is.
We mean, if there's enough business,
Yeah.
we can say it today, so now it doesn't look like it. By the time it comes here, not, how long it's going to take us.
Very true.
And it's interesting because Scott Atkins to tell you that when we first started having second meetings, it was only a couple times we expected to need it. And it got so, it was never even a question.
Well, it probably shortens them up.
I tell you, because we used to, what's the common to go 1, 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, yeah, like I was telling you, yeah, the meetings may still seem a little long, but no, not compared to.
And I know it's an extra trip for you and whatnot.
Yeah.
I like
No, I don't mind that, just like,
And, it's kind of archaic too, to only do business once a month. I mean, the department heads waiting for action on their issues and so on, so.
yeah, I want to move to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.